please, roll call.
Coach Smith.
Here.
Gustafson.
Here.
Perry.
Here.
J.R. Smith.
Here.
Brabner. Here. Mayor.
I am here. Our invocation and pledge will be led by our city clerk, Miss Rebecca Gaines. If you'll please rise.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of being allowed to come out tonight to make decisions for the city. We thank you for the beautiful weather today and the break in this rainy season. We ask you to bless this council as they ponder the business of the city. We ask you tonight, as we swear in our firefighters, that you bless all of our first responders and keep them safe, and bless all of our city employees who work out in the heat and the weather and along the highway. We ask that you guide the city council in making the correct decisions for this city. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. I ask for the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings, work session August 1st, 2022, and the regular meeting August 1st, 2022. Are there any corrections? If not, I stand approved as written. We'll open up the floor for public participation. If you'd like to address the council, please come forward to the podium, press the speak button, and please give us your name and address. The floor is open for public participation. You know the routine that.
I promise it's not going to be every week. I did have a week off. My name is Christine Zai. I live at 24 Danner Circle in Spanish Fort Estate, Spanish Fort, Alabama. I'm going to read another prepared statement because I just got back from my week off and haven't had as much time as I would have liked. 2 weeks ago, I told you how I had learned about the issue at 628 Southern Way. This is with regard to an Airbnb in my community. We have no HOA in my community, as we've discussed before. A neighbor called to express her friend's concern about an Airbnb near her home. In that conversation, the woman who called implored me not to say anything that might rile people up and to keep it on the down low. As I mentioned previously, I did not express an opinion, which I have one either way at this point either, in that phone conversation. But I then contacted my councilwoman and got more details from her. And it turned out that there had already been a council meeting and a decision made to shut the Airbnb down. And the second portion of that was actually told to me by the woman who brought the matter forward. I tracked the owners down through the Airbnb because I have Airbnbs in other locales, and I wasn't certain if they were aware of it, and I learned that they were not. They knew nothing about the complaint against them or the subsequent council meeting. There had been no conversations with neighbors, no complaints to the owners, no police calls to the home for any reason. In fact, the neighbor across the street, who happens to be a friend of mine, expressed how nice the new owners were and how lovely the home is on now, that they fixed it up from the mess that was when they bought it. She made no mention of any disturbance of any kind. On learning they were the subject of a council meeting without their knowledge, they were pretty blindsided. It wasn't until the following meeting, which was the meeting I attended a week and a half ago, I guess 2 weeks ago, the owner himself got the chance to be heard. I have spoken since then to several in the community who are as confused and frankly disappointed as I as to how this was managed. This is a new issue in our community. It's something that affects Daphne, Fairhope, most of the cities around us, and something at some point down the road is worth public discourse and public discussion. To me, and this was how it felt to me, it felt as though the whole thing had been rushed and somewhat quietly handled. I believe the citizens of Spanish Fort deserve the right to have reasonable debate and public discourse on new issues such as this. I have returned this evening to continue to express my support for transparency. Regardless of how this issue is resolved, the citizens have a right to know more about how these matters are resolved. I ask the council to just consider holding on any definitive decision until a reasonable period has been allowed for public discourse. Thank you.
Christine, can I clarify real quick? There was no meeting. When I got the information in talking with Ms. Denton, I texted the mayor and the attorney, asking, do we allow this? They did research, but there was no meeting.
Jason Collins. I live at 2 Monroe Lane, Spanish Fort. I think I've pointed out to some of y'all that, I mean, we do have some rentals around the neighborhood that are like 12-month rentals. You get to know the neighbors. I mean, you kind of trust them. One thing I brag about to my friends in Atlanta is how we don't lock our doors in Spanish Fort. If we leave the garage door open, nothing's going to happen. Well, now we got a revolving hotel, and I don't know if she pointed out, this isn't one Airbnb, it's 2. It's a revolving hotel. Now, I do notice how she said she had Airbnbs in other locales. I'm gonna guess there's not one across the street or next door to her. So that's why she's fighting so stringently for this. But to me, it's putting a diminish on Spanish Fort because, I mean, my pool is in the backyard facing the driveway of this house. And my daughter and 2 of her friends were out swimming a couple weeks ago, and there were some teenagers peering over the fence at my daughter. So my daughter and her 2 friends got out and came inside the house because they were nervous. I just don't think we want that in our neighborhoods.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
My name is Kelly Denton. I live at 6 Monroe Lane. When I first heard about this, I really didn't have an opinion either way. And everybody that knows me knows that I love to just dig in and study. So I've spent about 20 hours researching Airbnbs, their effect on neighborhoods across the Southeast especially. I don't think that the people that opened this Airbnb are anything but lovely people. But the issue goes back to the fact that even though we don't have an HOA, we have covenants and we have zoning. And I know you have written a letter to shut this particular one down, but what I'd like to do is encourage you to go further and create an ordinance for Spanish Fort, not just for the estates, but for all the neighborhoods of Spanish Fort, so that we don't go through this again down the road with attorneys and anything else. Because what they're experiencing in several cities, especially Charlotte, North Carolina, some cities in Tennessee and others, is that even HOAs are being overrun by attorneys that are coming in for the Airbnb. So as I researched, I found that Airbnb, if you go and you research, the first thing you'll start finding is, oh, it raised property values. It made the neighborhood more beautiful. They keep their property up. It's so pretty. But what happened in North Carolina was the state realtor board went and looked at those results. They took 11 studies that were done that said this and looked underneath the covers, so to speak. And what they found was that 9 of the 11 were sponsored by Airbnb. And so they hired a research company that's a nationally known research company named Maru Matchbox. They're a research firm that was founded in 2016. And they asked them to look into the real statistics. And what they found was, in the real statistics of this situation, that although property values did rise an average of 1.67%, that later property values for single-family homes dropped between 17 and 19%. Now, you have to allow for a little variation in the regular market, because there's always market variations. But they found that across the board, that was the average drop. But they also found something else. They found that the people who had lived there lost a sense of community. They lost the sense that this is my home, I know my neighbors. You know, for us, when a hurricane comes, we all get our chainsaws out. Whoever has food, cooks it and feeds the whole street. That's who we are. These are not neighbors that would be that. That's not who we are. And so that's an important thing. What they also found was that long-term, the neighborhoods declined. And that was over 4 years' time that they studied. The realtors found through using this Maru Matchbox research firm that the neighborhoods declined. Well, I want to submit to you that some people have said that there are dumps in Spanish Fort estates in the older part. I went and knocked on the doors of 4 of those so-called dumps and found out that they are all rentals. The problem is not the people, it's the landlords. I also wanted to say that our families deserve to keep what we have, what we've bought. You know, for most people, their home is their largest investment, and we need protection. And our protection is super important from you guys. You're standing at kind of a crossroads here. We need this ordinance that not just to protect the estates, but to protect all of our neighborhoods, and then it's a done deal, and we don't have to go through this ever again. And there are plenty of places that there could be some Airbnbs placed that would be fine. And I have nothing against Airbnb. I've stayed in Airbnb. My sister owns an Airbnb on Hilton Head Island. But the neighborhood that her Airbnb in was completely built as a loop of 12 houses to be Airbnbs. It was designated as that from the very beginning, and they have a security guard, and they've put the things in place that need to be there. Another thing that my room Matchbox found was that Airbnb had almost 45 times more complaints than ever were known. They found 45 complaints that they found easily, and they noted in their research that they didn't go on further to look for any more. And those complaints, often Airbnb paid off the complainant not to take it to court, not to take it further. So what I'm asking you is, please help us not to have this again. Also, I'm going to take this one step further. The older part of the states, down from where I live, is like a senior citizen in your family that needs some help. And over the years, those houses cumulatively have paid more taxes than the newer neighborhoods. And I think it's time that we help them. I think those roads need curbs and sidewalks. I think we need to figure out a way to create incentives for those houses to improve. But what I've also seen in that part of the neighborhood, I actually flipped 2 houses in that part of the neighborhood and sold them to young families, is that young families are coming back. The cheerleader that lived next door to me, I've been there 24 years, has now bought a house around the corner with her husband, and they're fixing up that house. And 2 doors down from her is her best friend from high school who's bought a house and fixing up that part. I think if we're patient and we wait, see, because we don't need these investors to come in and cause these houses to cost so much that our young couples can't find a home in Spanish Fort. We need them. Their kids go to the elementary school. They're the ones that buy the raffle tickets and participate in the sports and do all the things that make us such a great community. And so I'm just imploring you to please put some protection in place, and then let's figure out how we can help the older part of the states come up. I don't see, I mean, could we give them tax incentives or anything? Let's help our senior citizen part of the neighborhood, the older part, to come back, and let's figure out what we can do about these landlords who are not keeping their properties up, because they're really the ones that are kind of the problem, especially down from me at the end of Southern Way and some parts around Artillery Range and where some of these houses are. So that's what I wanted to say. I'm going to look at my notes to see if there's anything I'm forgetting. I didn't prepare a statement. I'm better usually just speaking off the cuff. Also, I think it's extremely sad that instead of discussing this here, like this is supposed to be, a lot of people have attacked each other on Facebook and on the neighborhood blog, and that's been really sad. And there are people that don't even know each other, and that makes me sad for us. Since COVID, I think people have taken more license and are a little bit ruder, and that makes me sad. But we can't do anything about that, but we can do something about this other, and I would really appreciate you considering this. And I have all the documentation for everything I said if you want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments from the council?
I'm very conflicted about this whole issue. I see the pros and cons for both of it. I will tell you that many times our tennis group will go out of town to a tournament, and the first thing we look for is an Airbnb, because we can put a bunch of women in one house and we can enjoy each other's companies and cook a meal and really have a great weekend, instead of putting us in, 5, 6, 7 hotel rooms where we're separated. We're nice people coming into these places, but we may not be the norm of what's going into these Airbnbs. So, like I said, I see both sides of it, and I don't know what to do.
I would say that I feel a special, I guess, obligation to folks who have been around, like you said, who, you know, have invested and they've built their lives there, and when they built their home, they didn't do so in anticipation of a hotel or a motel in the same neighborhood or even next door, heaven forbid. So I know that's maybe a little hyperbole there, but it's similar. I mean, and so I guess my question, and this is probably for council, I suppose, we don't currently in our zoning allow for it explicitly. Is there a need for any new resolution to explicitly deny it?
And I will pass that to Mr. Connor, but the way I understand it is we have everything in place already to keep it from happening. So we don't need to pass any more ordinances done across the city. Ms. Connor,
No, with that, I agree, Mayor. With that said, we're certainly going to look at the ordinance in light of what's been said to make sure we've covered every base. And it may be that the Planning Commission needs to take some action for some clarification. But, and I just want to straighten out or clarify some things that happened. This was not a situation where the city allowed these properties to be used for that purpose. They were used for that purpose, and we discovered it based on complaints that were issued. As we always do, we take a look at what the ordinances say, listen to the people that are involved, and so the property owners, I don't know when this meeting supposedly took place. I don't think there was a meeting prior to the time that these particular people came and presented their case, and we told them that we would take it under submission and talk about it at a work session, and then review what their request was and take appropriate action under the circumstances. We've also, at another public hearing and meeting, had a discussion with the Planning Commission at a work session regarding this to see whether or not any additional information or action needs to be taken, and so that might be done. But as best I can tell, Airbnb at its most basic level is just a short-term transient rental. The Airbnb part, as I understand it, is basically the booking mechanism. It's done online. They have a way to book. So the use of property for short-term and transient rentals is not something that's new. And in fact, the city's zoning ordinance was adopted in 1996. And in that, as far as I know, since 1996, the zoning ordinance has basically read the same way. If you look at the table of permitted uses, it allows for bed and breakfast in all residential and commercial districts with Planning Commission approval only, which means you have to actually come to the Planning Commission and get the approval of the Planning Commission to use the property as a bed and breakfast. To my knowledge, that was not done on any property. I don't think this Planning Commission has ever issued an approval to operate a bed and breakfast in the city at all, and certainly not in any residential districts. The next areas that are addressed are lodging houses, boarding houses, and rooming houses, and they have various different definitions of what those are depending on the number of rooms you have, depending on whether or not they have cooking and facilities, depending on whether or not you provide restaurants or food. All of those uses are prohibited in the table of permitted uses in all residential districts. They're only allowed in business districts. And so while Airbnb, the word Airbnb doesn't appear in the table of permitted use, those types of uses do. And based on that review of the ordinance, it appears that the intent was that those types of uses, as well as hotel motels, are not allowed by right in any residential district. Only bed and breakfast with Planning Commission approval, which has not occurred. Whether or not we want to tweak that up based on things that are happening, we might take a look at it and discuss that. But at the end of the day, one of the things the Planning Commission does is if there is no clearly analogous or specific statement as to a use in the table of permitted uses, then the Planning Commission is supposed to look at the most clearly analogous use and then decide whether or not, based on the most clearly analogous uses, that use should be allowed. So in our letter that we sent to the property owner, we outlined all of that, saying that, and it was signed by the building and zoning official, that under the circumstances, we do not believe that that type of short-term rental is allowed under the present zoning ordinance of the city of Spanish Fort. If they were to request a review by the Planning Commission, then again, as I stated, the most clearly analogous use that I can think of, somebody may think of it differently, would be the three uses in the table, hotels and motels. Well, those certainly are not allowed in residential districts. The next one would be bed and breakfast. Those are only allowed with planning commission approval, and there's not ever been any approved in residential districts in the city. The third would be rooming houses, boarding houses, and lodging houses, and they're not allowed, they're prohibited in residential districts. So I'm of the opinion that if we're going to allow those types of uses, that would take a change or an amendment to the zoning ordinance or an action to allow that. And so that's why we've taken the position that we have. Before any changes are made, there'll be notices of public hearings or discussions, but based on the discussions we've had so far, I'm not aware of any discussion to make a change that would allow for that type of use, if that's fair, Mayor. And does that answer your question, Councilmember Smith?
One thing that I would add to this as well, and I've done this in my own personal neighborhood, and I've talked to other people with their HOAs as well, it's time to tighten those things up. Many of the HOAs, and I know this doesn't help Spanish Fort Estates because it does not have an HOA, but many times these HOAs, I'm a real estate broker. I see these things all the time, and many times these guys are on very cookie cutter HOA contracts that they got inherited from a developer that put them out there and just kept using the same one for every neighborhood that they do. And so I've had conversations with people saying, if this is not something that you want in the neighborhood, I think we need to tighten it up. We need to specifically either allow it or deny it, because then the city will have something to enforce on there as well. So the more restrictive use on that will prevail. And so if the neighborhood has already said, hey, look, we don't allow these, then it's pretty much an open and shut case.
Force covenants of any neighborhood or homeowner rules. We won't do that, but you're absolutely right. So, yes, sir.
I'm Charles Cattell. I've lived in Spanish Fort since 1975. My daughter's living in a residence at 710 Artillery Range, and my house is on Blakely River Road. Re 706 under Chief Edgar. You should remember that at that time, I was asking for single-family residences. What was zoned single-family residence to be single-family? And at 706 Artillery Range Road, when Chief Edgar put the pressure on the people, because there were a lot of 10-minute visitors there, and they were running hydroponic gardens inside the house, okay? So he put the pressure on them, and the folks decided to move out. When we went in, the property was in such terrible condition, Ralph, the building inspector at that time, wanted to have it condemned. But at every bedroom in that house, and it was a 4-bedroom house, there was a lock on every door, okay? So they had 2 common bathrooms. So it for sure wasn't a single-family house. And I approached the board at that time of Spanish Fort and requested that a single-family house be a single-family house. And I was under the impression that that passed.
We have an ordinance in place establishing guidelines for single-family residents within a
Yeah, because
residential
it's
neighborhood,
obvious, and I
yes.
think another problem is you see a lot of house trailers, or excuse me, RVs trailers with the slides out and and they're plugged in. And when you see 6 or 7 cars in a yard, it's a little bit of a clue, okay? So I would appreciate it if we did start enforcing that, what I was under the impression that we had done that already. So that's
If you're
just
aware of some
from personal
situations like that,
experience.
you need to if you're aware of situations like that, you need to let us know.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we're not gonna, if we see it, we're gonna
Yeah,
react, but
I know
we don't have eyes
times are
everywhere.
awful tough and people are having problems, unfortunately. But
As the
what
mayor,
a lot
as
of
the mayor,
neighbors go through, enough's enough. But thank you, guys, and I appreciate any effort that can be made.
Thank you, Charles.
As the mayor mentioned, there is an ordinance that was passed several years ago that deals with maximum occupancy of single-family homes and defines how and under what circumstances that people can live there. It's based on familiar relationship and numbers. Because of the ever-changing scope of families, you have to be careful about how you do that in its enforcement, because you could have people that are living together domestically that aren't necessarily related, but the idea was to limit the number of people and keep homes from being used basically as dormitory housing for workers, and so that we do have that ordinance in place.
Anyone else? I did skip over one item on the agenda for committee reports. Ms. Gaines?
No report, sir.
Mr. Connor?
I have one item at the end of your business regarding an engagement letter that we need to bring up at that point in time.
Thank you, sir. Chief Barber? Chief Hugh? Mr. Tucker? Casey hiding back there? Got anything, Casey? Thank you. Under announcements, the Spanish Fort Community Center Public Library will be closed Monday, September 5th in observance of the Labor Day holiday. The Spanish Fort Library will also be closed on Saturday, June the 3rd, to allow staff to celebrate the Labor Day holiday weekend. The City Council meeting, normally scheduled for the first Monday of the month, will be held on Tuesday, September 6, 2022, at 6 o'clock here at the Community Center. The City Council work session will be held at 4:30. The City of Spanish Fort is accepting applications for the Spanish Fort Junior City Council. Applications are open to rising public, private, or homeschool 10th, 11th, 12th grade students who reside in the Spanish Fort High School attendance zone feeder pattern. Please complete the application package and return to the city clerk. Applications are available under the public notices section of the city's website. One other announcement I'd like to, that wasn't on my agenda, but I want to make sure we're aware of. We will have a reception at the next meeting on the 6th, that Tuesday, to honor our firefighters who have become part of the city. We appreciate each and every one of you, so we want to have a little reception afterwards. It's on a Tuesday night. I think that's training night, so Chief, if you could give him a little bit of time to have some punch and cookies with us, we'd appreciate it. All right, no old business. On new business, we have swearing in of city employees, and the first one we will be swearing in will be Mr. Anthony Lee, Fire Inspector and City Investigator.
Support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama
and the laws thereof,
and the laws thereof,
as long as I am a citizen thereof,
as long as I am a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully and honestly,
and that I will faithfully and honestly,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute and discharge the duties
execute and discharge the duties
of the Office of Fire Inspector and Fire Investigator
of the Office of Fire Inspector and Fire Investigator
for the City of Spanish Fort, Alabama,
for the City of Spanish Fort, Alabama,
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Anthony, I'm so glad this has finally happened. I know Chief Few is. I guess on Thanksgiving when we cook turkeys, when we're frying those turkeys now, I won't have to worry about you burning up the place because you know what to do with it. So thank you, sir. Appreciate having you on board. Next, we have our firefighters to come forward. And Mr. Connor's going to read your names off.
Yes, sir. Chase M. Bozeman, Caleb A. Faust. Calgary E. Glatz. James D. Powell. Leslie J. Sewell. Timothy J. Cooper. Zachary G. Mihalovich. Andon J. Kingry. Charles F. Jones.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to just repeat, repeat after me. When I say state your name, you say your own name. So, I state your name. Raise your right hand, I'm sorry. Let's start over. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Alabama and the laws thereof, as long as I am a citizen thereof, and that I will faithfully and honestly, without partiality or prejudice, execute and discharge the duties of the office of firefighter for the city of Spanish Fort, Alabama, to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations.
Chief, I'm sure you have a word or two you may want to say, but on behalf of the city council, the citizens of Spanish Fort, thank you for what you do. This is the first step of us becoming a full-blown fire department. Even though we've been there for over 60 years, Chief's been very well handling this for us for quite a while, but thank you from the city council. We appreciate you very much.
And that's all I want to say is, as I said last week, this was a first step. This is another step in our journey, and I appreciate what we're doing.
And gentlemen, if you'll give your oaths to Judge Rose, please.
I think I'll stay down here and just work this from down here. It's a lot easier that way. Next is always a pleasure to present an anniversary plaque to a gentleman who's been with the city for 15 years, Sergeant George M. Kafanis III. Became a corporal in 2021, sergeant in 2022. He's on the fast track. So we really appreciate Mr. Kafanis. If you'll please come forward. Thank you. Here's your chance. You can ask him for a raise or something. He's already done that, don't worry. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on the agenda, I'd like to present ordinance number 603, 2022, an ordinance granting a non-exclusive franchise to Comcast Alabama LLC for the purpose of maintaining distribution lines for the provision of cable television within the public rights-of-way of the city. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, Comcast has requested that the city grant them a franchise for the purpose of providing cable television within the public rights-of-way in the city of Spanish Fort. They've requested a 10-year franchise, and the provision of compensation would be 5% of gross receipts for cable service television services provided in the city. A copy of the proposed terms are attached as part of this resolution. There were some questions that were raised during the work session regarding this franchise. We will seek to resolve those questions, and if adequately resolved, move toward a public hearing on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any discussion from the council? Well, we'll have a public hearing on this item at the 16th or 6th meeting.
Because we have a fifth Monday, we can do it the 6th.
6th.
I would say give us some time, though, because we got some questions there, so let's do the second meeting in September, I
Which
think.
would be 16th, it'd be the 5th, 19th, right?
I think that's correct.
Is that right? Yeah. I'd like to present ordinance number 604, 2022, an ordinance establishing regulations for the mobile food units operating in the city of Spanish Fort, Alabama. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, this ordinance has been referred to the Planning Commission for their review, comment, and recommendation back to the City Council for the purpose of establishing regulations for the operation of mobile food units within the city of Spanish Fort. As you know, at this point in time, we do not allow these types of uses in the corporate limits of the city. This resolution would authorize and allow them subject to certain terms and conditions. The Planning Commission plans to hold a public hearing on this ordinance at the second Monday meeting in September. At that meeting, they'll be requested for either a positive or negative recommendation to the City Council for its review and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion from the council? This will be on our next agenda after we get a report from the Planning Commission, I believe, correct? I'd like to introduce ordinance number 605, 2022, an ordinance adjusting business license fees. Mr. Connor.
The Alabama Department of Revenue, in accordance with state law, every 5 years reviews the license fee charges for the issuance of license fees. The license fees itself are established by the city of Spanish Fort would not be changed by this ordinance, but only the cost of issuance for each license. They have allowed or authorized a maximum amount of $14 to be determined at the discretion of each municipality, and this would raise their license fee issuance cost beginning January 1, 2023 in the city of Spanish Fort to $14 per license.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any discussion from the council? This is being introduced tonight and will be on your September 6th agenda. I'd like to present Resolution 1250, 2022, a resolution adopting a transportation plan for the city of Spanish Fort, Alabama for the fiscal year 2022-2023. David?
Mayor, in 2019, the Alabama legislature adopted the Rebuild Alabama Act for the purpose of providing funding for transportation and improvement projects. As part of that enactment, it requires municipalities to approve a transportation plan for each fiscal year and to submit that to the Alabama Department of Transportation. For this fiscal year, the city proposes to resurfacing and roadway improvements along Wildflower Trail, General Canby Loop, Pirates Lane, and Alameda Court. The estimated monetary amount of improvements to be constructed is approximately $280,000, and the city plans to spend the funds it receives from the act toward this project or more projects as necessary.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion from the council? Do I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt resolution 1250, 2022.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Kurt Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
J.R. Smith,
Yes.
Brabner,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, the resolution is adopted. I'd like to present Resolution 1252, 2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between the City of Spanish Fort and Adam Stewart Architects, LLC. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, this is a part of the integration agreement and planning that's been going on for some time regarding the fire department and its integration with the City of Spanish Fort. This is a proposed agreement with the architect, Adam Stewart Architects, Inc., for the purpose of design and construction surveillance for a new fire station number 1 to be located and constructed on Highway 31. Several years ago, the city purchased property at the corner of 31 and Wayside Drive for the purpose of constructing a new fire station, and this would authorize the architect to proceed with design and construction for that fire station.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council? Too bad all the firemen left, so they didn't hear this, but I know you've been waiting for this for a long time, Chief, so we're
They
getting there.
left before they found out they're getting a new home.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 1252-2022.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Kurt Smith?
Yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
J.R. Smith?
Yes.
Brabner? Mayor?
Yes, the resolution is adopted. I'd like to present Resolution 1253, 2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding between the Baldwin County Commission and the City of Spanish Fort Police Department. Mr. Connor does have a conflict. I keep forgetting that when I throw him out there that it was, so I'll try to help with this. This has to do with the radio systems that we have. Is $10 annually per line. Month, excuse me. $10 a month times 12. I look at things budget-wise. And for every radio we have, you can look for this same agreement to come down with the fire department now that the merger's going forward. Any discussion from the council? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt Resolution 1253, 2022.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Kurt Smith?
Yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
J.R. Smith?
Yes.
Brabner?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, the resolution is adopted. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1254, 2022, a resolution authorizing a one-time bonus for retirees and beneficiaries of deceased retirees to be expensed in the fiscal year 2023 for the City of Spanish Fort employees. Mr. Connor.
Mayor, Act number 299 of the regular session of the 2022 Alabama Legislature authorizes a one-time bonus for retirees and beneficiaries of deceased retirees to be expensed in fiscal year 2023 for municipal government and other employees. This is clearly an election or option that is given to the cities to fund this if they deem necessary. It's required to be approved and submitted on or before August 31 in order to make the payments be made on or after October 1, 2022. The amount that's paid is based on $2 for each month of service credited to a retiree's account. For all of the eligible employees of the City of Spanish Fort, this would come to a total of, for all the employees, not each employee, but for all employees, $5,816. This is a one-time lump sum payment.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council? I know this has been something we've twisted around and talked about. I shouldn't say twisted around, wrong words, but hey, we discussed it. We recognize that, you know, we're setting a precedent, but we don't want to set this precedent all the time either. We got to be careful with these kind of things because that's exactly what bites cities long term to do that. So, any further discussion from the council? I have a motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration.
So moved.
Make a motion, we suspend the rules on 1254-2022.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Kurt Smith?
Yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
J.R. Smith,
Yes.
Brabner,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, do I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt 12/54/2022, a one-time bonus for retirees.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Kurt Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
J.R. Smith,
Yes.
Brabner,
For fear that this sets a precedence in the future, I sadly vote no.
and Mayor.
Yes, motion is approved. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1255, 2022. Resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for engineering services between the city of Spanish Fort, Alabama and Goodwin Mills and Kaywood LLC. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, the city has received grant funding to purchase the old Hudson Oil site from the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources by and through a GOMESA grant. That grant was awarded and the acquisition took place. This is a step toward improving that project for future park or use by the city. This would authorize Goodwin Mills and Kaywood to prepare design plans and specifications for the construction of a shoreline restoration project on the property. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit 1 to this resolution. The total cost in the amount of $262,570 for design, permitting, shoreline protection, final design phase, and bid phase construction is outlined in the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any discussion from the council? This is being introduced tonight and will be on the September 6th agenda. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1256, 2022, a resolution declaring an emergency and authorize the mayor to have emergency repairs performed on certain property in Spanish Fort, Alabama. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, the subject property is located at 10,000 Town Center Avenue, Spanish Fort, Alabama. It's the property that's occupied by Wells Fargo location. It came to the attention of the city that at some time, I believe it was Sunday evening, Mayor? Sunday? Monday.
Yes.
That an irrigation line that's operated by the city for the purpose of irrigating medians and taking care of was damaged, and it resulted in a slope failure, and that along with rain events that were occurring resulted in a slope failure in that area that piled debris and dirt into the parking lot. Based on the amount of rain that we've been having and the conditions in the area, it has been determined and recommended that this constitutes an emergency affecting public health, safety, and convenience because of the location of this slope failure to the Highway 98 roads, additional utilities that are in the area, and damage to the property. So this would authorize and declare an emergency based on the danger to public health, safety, and welfare, allow for engineering services and emergency repairs to be conducted without going through the normal formal steps of the Alabama competitive bid laws. However, there will be efforts to obtain bids. You just won't have to go through the advertisement process.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council?
I haven't been by the site since I looked at it on Monday night and called. Have they put in any kind of silt fence or anything to keep stuff from going down into the storm
No, they're still
drain at
going
this
through
point?
the survey and engineering prospect at this point, so no work's been done. Any further discussion? Do I have a motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration?
Make a motion to suspend the rules for Resolution 1256, 2022.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Kurt Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
J.R. Smith,
Yes.
Brabner,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, do I have a motion to adopt?
Make a motion to adopt Resolution 1256, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Kurt Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
J.R. Smith,
Yes.
Brabner,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, the resolution is adopted. I think we have one more item, an engagement letter agreement with Frazier Lemire. Mr. Connor?
There's Bob Young with the Frazier Lanier Company Incorporated has responded to a request for information regarding possible financing of future public infrastructure within the city of Spanish Fort. As part of their due diligence and requirements under applicable federal law, they're required to enter into an engagement letter and make certain disclosures to the city regarding their relationship and their obligations to the city. There's a letter that's been submitted for the mayor's approval dated August 11, 2022, which outlines the relationship between the parties, with the city being the issuer of the potential bonds or debt in the future, and Frazier Laniers being an underwriter. This will allow them to engage in the discussions with the mayor, answer questions, and provide documentation. However, there's a limitation on the engagement that says although the issuer engages Frazier Lanier as the underwriter for the securities, this engagement letter is preliminary, non-binding, and may be terminated at any time by the issuer without penalty or liability from any cost incurred by Frazier Lanier. So it is a letter that's required to be submitted in accordance with federal law. So the recommendation is that you authorize the mayor to execute this letter on behalf of the city to engage in discussions with the bond underwriters. Based on the fact that it could ultimately at some point in time involve the expenditure of money, I would suggest that you suspend the rules on this as well.
Any discussion from the council? Do I have a motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration?
Motion to suspend.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Kurt Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
J.R. Smith,
Yes.
Brabner,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion for the mayor to enter into to execute a letter with Frazier Lanier to engagement letter with Frazier Lanier.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Kurt Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
J.R. Smith,
Yes.
Brabner,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, the resolution is approved. Or, I guess it was a resolution. We didn't number it.
Motion.
Motion,
Just
whatever it was. Any other business coming before the council tonight? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.